Hey guys, welcome back to Bible Fun with the Dunns. Today we're studying Deuteronomy chapter 7. Let's get started.
Okay, so in Deuteronomy chapter 7, what we're finding is God is preparing his people to go into the promised land. Now remember, when we're reading these Old Testament stories, we're not just reading them like a history book. We need to be looking at all of this and asking, what does it mean about Jesus? And so here we have God preparing his people, promising them that he's going to be with them, but eventually he's going to take them to a promised land. And in Jesus, our promise is that he is with us all the way through this life. After we come to know him, he lives in our hearts, he lives inside of us, and one day he's going to take us to a promised land called what, John?
Heaven.
Called to heaven, that's right. And it's going to be a great place. And so all of this is really like symbols telling us what God is going to do later. Now, at the beginning, it says, when the Lord your God brings you into the land which you go to possess. Now, remember, he's not saying if God comes through and if God takes you to this place. He says when God does that. And then he lists 7 enemies: the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now, what that means is they were going into the promised land, and there were some folks that were already living there. So in order to get the promised land, they were going to have to take it over from these other peoples. What all this says is that when they get there, God is going to be the one that's going to have to give them total victory. And so they couldn't do this on their own. God was going to have to do it for them. And that's kind of where John's takeaway comes in. John, what'd you see in this chapter?
My takeaway is verse 17 and 18. It says, if you say to yourself, these nations are greater than I, how can I drive them out? Do not be afraid of them. Be sure to remember what the Lord your God did to Pharaoh and all Egypt. So these people might be afraid, and
is it normal for people to feel
yes.
afraid? Okay, so when they were afraid, who were they supposed to trust in?
God.
Okay, and was God going to help them?
Yes.
All right, now tell me the verse you talked about from Psalms that root connected to this.
When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Psalms 56:3.
All right, Psalm 56:3. Say it again, because really this is a big theme for everything, for today and for back then. Say it again.
When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Psalm 56:3.
When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. So they're going to go into the promised land, and when they get there, they might be so afraid, and they might go, how do we defeat all these people? And God says, easy. You can't, but I can. If you'll just trust in me, I'll take care of you. Now, why does God do this? Because earlier he says, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. It's verse 6. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for himself, a special treasure. He calls his people a special treasure above all the peoples on the face of the earth. Now, the Lord did not set his love on you or choose you because you were more in number than any other people, for you were actually the least of all peoples. He did this because the Lord loves you. Well, that's powerful, because what it is, this means that grace is on display. God didn't choose them, and he didn't choose us to save us because we're great, because we're perfect, because we're super smart, or because we're extra good. He chose us because he loves us. And that answers why Jesus came, because God so loved the
world
that he gave his only begotten
Son,
that whosoever
believes
in him shall not
perish,
but have
everlasting
life. There it is. And so this all connects together, that God is our chief warrior. He is our defender. He is trustworthy, that God is gracious. He is loving. And I like in verse 13, he says, and he will love you and bless you and multiply you. Well, if God loves me and he's gracious to me, you know what that says? When it says he will multiply you, he's talking about, I'm going to make you a gigantic group of people. And I like to look at it and say, God can do a lot even with my little bit. Even if I have a little faith or a little trust or a little strength, nothing holds God back from doing what God's going to do. And so when I'm afraid, what can I do, John?
I can trust in you.
So whatever you're looking at that scares you, go back and read this chapter and go, there's nothing in this world that's too big for God. When I'm afraid, I can
trust in you.
All right. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.